I think you all would have heard enough of femto, but I'm just changing the topic to make LASIK what happens when it gets to tough cases. So this is, I think we have less time, so we're going to go fast. Let's consider LASIK in nystagmus. Marking is quite simple. But is there going to be a problem in making the flap or applying the laser? Using the Moria microkeratome, at the time of the flap making, because the eye is held, the procedure is quite simple. This is the Moria, and with a superior hinge, the flap is created. But is there going to be a problem in applying the laser? This is the object for the eye tracker on the MEL 70, originally made by Astrolab and now the Zeiss. Notice that the laser application is quite possible as it's applied around the center of the object of the eye tracker. So LASIK is quite possible even in nystagmus. And you can have the next case is even more trickier. A smaller cornea and a smaller eye. Now here are the chances of one having a free cap. So I decided that we make one more extra mark, and you can see that I'm using an edge ring on the Moria. The arrow is superior, indicating the position of the hinge. And notice the difficulty in getting the hold on the eye. So one attempt may not be sufficient in such a case scenario. The amount of sclera that is exposed around is also higher because of the condition of the eye. So with immense pressure, one can ultimately get a good grip on the eye. I decided to modify the technique of the flap making with the help of the Moria. You notice that I use an applanation lens, which has got two rings inside, which gives a good idea of the size of the flap that would be created by the Moria. But I made one more modification, that we do not cut till the stop reaches the stopper. And you have to stop the microkeratome 1 millimeter before the stop reaches the stopper. And that helps in creating the small little hinge in such a case scenario. Otherwise, the chance of getting a free cap are much higher. Notice that the hinge is much smaller. Once the laser is done, the flap is placed back. The next case is using an ES iris Schwind laser post-RK. You saw the number of cuts on the eye, and this is the pendular size hinge. So in a RK operated eye, in this case, I have used a 130 micron head, and the fear of getting multiple pies when RK has already been done is always there in our mind. Notice the flap that is created. A good size hinge, a good size flap, and no other problems of pies. So the number of cuts after radial keratotomy is still a good candidate to have safe LASIK. Each mark of the cut is a marker for alignment of the flap post-LASIK. The next topic of bioptics. An interesting case, a 50-year-old gentleman had visited our clinic who had refractive surgery in 1982 and a refraction of +5 with -5.5 cylinder at 30 degrees and a cat.
This is a very interesting case. If you see, it's not RK. I spoke this some time back and said radial keratotomy, which was wrong because it's radical keratotomy. What actually the surgeon has done, he's taken marks across the cornea. It's not like an RK mark, you'll see that better. And the patient's refraction is +5 with -5.2 at 618. This is the K reading, this is the cell count, this is the pachymetry, a good this thing, and came to me for laser surgery. And if you see it when it's dilated, you'll see how luckily the surgeon left the pupil when the original surgery was done, and that's why we had good results. Just see what we did.
So when the op scan reading before.
So what I did was I made a flap, because that time we were not sure of how the flap is going to behave. So I just made a flap, and see the mark on the cornea is going across the cornea through and through almost 90%, and made a flap, and then I did this applanation mark to make sure that the amount of applanation is enough to get 2 rings. This was designed by us many years back and actually tells us the flap diameter before the flap is going to be cut, which is in fact a safety zone. And this time I was using a Moria, now I'm using a pendula. This is an old video as you might have seen, but it's a very interesting case. And once I made the flap, I did not do the laser and I left it. And then I went ahead and did the cataract. So you see that I've lifted it, just left it, not done the laser, and everything is fine. Then did the op scan, and then went ahead and did the cataract. Now what happens when the cataract is done and what is the post-op result, you'll see that too. So once this is done, this is the op scan. Obviously nothing is going to really change because your number and everything is the same. I went ahead and did a Technis foldable IOL, and it was a vertically steep. So you can see the marks now quite well on the cornea. It's across, it's going through and through almost 90%, and the pupil is of course left. And that's the reason why we could achieve good result. I went ahead and did my cataract, did everything, and after another 1.5 months, I just lifted the flap. And as you know, the pre-op refraction was +5 with -5.5. Since almost 18 years, he lived like that. And then I went ahead and did a foldable IOL, put this, and then after a month and a half, refracted him again. And if you see, the refraction was +2.5 at 120, 612, 69 with a 2.5 and 6. And that's the op scan after the cataract surgery. And to remove that, I went ahead and did a laser again. Okay? So just, now we already have the flap ready. You can see the lens smiling back at you. So even in laser we have smile. So this is the flap which was originally created. Quite tough to find it because he has a dense arcus. And then I had a MEL 70. This is a ring which actually used as a active eye tracker object. And once the laser was done, I put the flap back, washed and everything in place. This is the op scan post-op. So a +5.5 with a -5 became a 0.7520 at 6.9 with a 2.5 and 6. So this is quite possible with your bioptics. Thank you, Mahipal, and thank you for your attention.